Eddie? Mark?
Okay. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Troy City Council. It's Tuesday, January 17th, 2022 at 7 p.m. My name is William Lutz, President of Council. We'll begin tonight's meeting with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Councilmember Schilling. Please rise.
Thank you. Thank you. For many, the beginning of the new year represents new hope, new resolutions, and the desire to start anew. Let us be thankful that last fall many American voters chose not to follow the misguided efforts of failed politicians, but to look anew for leadership that is willing to address the problems that face this nation, rather than to try to reinvent and rehash the past. I had the pleasure to attend Troy's Dr. Martin Luther King Commemoration Day program yesterday. The theme of the celebration was beloved community. The speaker, the Reverend Jawad Love, focused on the early days of King's efforts to bring equality and justice to all and his message of beloved community. The commemoration began with on-the-street interviews in downtown Troy. The question was, what is a beloved community? All those who were interviewed praised Troy as a beloved community, but I believe they missed the mark. Our old city motto, the one before we became Denver Bronco fans, where civic pride is citywide. I lost my spot there, I apologize for that. Best reflects the feelings of those who were interviewed, and I believe our community in general. We love Troy and have pride in our community, and that was reflected in the interviews. But according to the Reverend Love, we need to do more. He asked us to quit dreaming, quit marching, and quit selling cheap T-shirts, and get down to the work of becoming a beloved community. Reverend Love defined the community of Dr. King's dreams as one of transforming people and relationships, creating communities grounded in reconciliation, friendship, and human dignity. Not just desegregation, but a complete integrated society. A community of love and justice where brotherhood would be an actuality in all of social life. A community of positive peace, which requires a commitment from all of us as community members to stay in dialogue with each other across differences, even in the face of disagreements, misunderstandings, and conflicts. So as we begin the new year, let us resolve to get down to work and focus on the future. Let us pray that our work will bring us closer to Dr. King's goals of a beloved community. Let us do a better job of understanding, accepting, and loving our neighbors for who they are. Let us not dictate to each other, but communicate. Let us pray that our community will fill not just a small church, but will fill an Arbogast Center or a Hobart Arena with residents who understand, accept, and work towards the goals of Dr. King's beloved community and desire to celebrate his vision of a more perfect, just, equal world together. Let's now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Schilling. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Whidden?
Present.
Mr. Twist?
Present.
Mrs. Sneed? Here. Mr. Sievers?
Here.
Mr. Schilling?
Present.
Mr. Rozelle?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mr. Phillips? Mrs. Marshall? Here.
Move to excuse Mr. Phillips. Second.
It has been moved to excuse Mr. Phillips. Motion made by Mr. Schilling, seconded by Mr. Sievert. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Rozelle?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips is excused.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. This time we have a presentation from Mayor Oda for the Quarterly Recycling Award.
Branson? Your family's going to a lunch now?
Yeah, our young boys are moving bedtime.
Oh. Quite hungry about you.
Hopefully.
Well, Your family was selected as winners for this, you can come right up
Okay.
next to me. Selected as winners of the recycling award for this quarter, for basically the last quarter of 2022. So this is a little bit of a late award. 2 bags for your kids,
Thank you. We'll appreciate it.
gift card for you and your wife.
Thank you.
And let's see, you wrote, we recycle because we do not want to contribute any more waste to the landfill than necessary. Our hope is that items placed in recycling containers will be able to have a second life and serve another purpose. We want to do our part to make our good world a great place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for participating in the recycling.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Tell the kids we said hi, bring them up sometime.
Okay.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Mrs. Knight, will you please read the minutes of our last meeting in Troy City Council?
Minutes of Council, January 3, 2023. Committee reports. Buildings and Utilities Committee recommended legislation be prepared authorizing an application to OEPA for a grant for equipment for water distribution. Community and Economic Development Committee recommended that ordinance number 060, 2022 be adopted. Streets and Sidewalks Committee recommended that legislation be prepared approving the final ODOT urban paving project of resurfacing 55 from Peters Avenue, Grant Street to Franklin Street. Law and Ordinance Committee reported regarding 2 liquor license applications. Resolution number R1, 2023, the use of internet sales during 2023 to sell surplus items was given first reading and adopted. Resolution number R2, 2023, submitted an application to OEPA for grant was given first reading and adopted. Resolution number R3, 2023, participating in the ODOT resurfacing of State Route 55 was given first reading and adopted. Ordinance number 060, 2022, amending ordinance 042, 2022, was given third reading and adopted. Following comments, council adjourned at 7:27.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. How's council wish to dispose of the
Move
minutes?
to approve.
Second.
It's moved to approve the minutes by Mr. Rozell, seconded by Mr. Twist. Mrs. Knight, will you?
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Minutes are approved. Minutes are approved.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. We'll move on to committee reports. We have a number of reports this evening. We'll begin with the Safety and Health Committee and Mr. Twist.
Sorry, it kicked me out. Let me get there. I think your phone went dead. No, my iPad just keeps, hold on, we're getting there.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
The floor is yours.
I know, sorry, any day. It's just, it was just going in circles on me here. Okay, thank you, sorry about that. The committee met on January 9th to discuss if urban beekeeping should be permitted in residential areas. We heard a report of staff and comments of a number of citizens. We were not prepared to make a recommendation at this time, but we've asked the staff to provide further review, which we discussed what was needed to provide the committee with some additional information. And then at that time, we will schedule another meeting to discuss further. That's respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, Jeffrey Whidden, and myself as Chair, William Twist.
Thank you, Mr. Twist. Are there any comments or questions on this report? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, and I'll kindly ask Mrs. Snee to give the report for Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee members Snee and Phillips met on January 9th regarding the preliminary consent legislation requested by the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, related to ODOT paving a small portion of State Route 55, Staunton Road towards Casstown, that is within the corporate boundary. This project will be at no cost to the city. ODOT requires the return of the consent legislation by February 1st. This committee recommends that legislation be prepared approving the preliminary consent legislation for the ODOT paving project of resurfacing a small portion of State Route 55, Staunton Road, within the corporate boundary. Based on the ODOT format and to meet the date to return legislation to ODOT, this committee supports emergency legislation. And this is respectfully submitted by Mr. Pierce, myself, and Mr. Phillips as chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Snee. Are there any comments or questions on this report? Seeing none, I have a report this evening from the Council Committee of the Whole. On January 9th, Council met as a Committee of the Whole, chaired by myself, to consider an amended designated outdoor refreshment area application. The committee considered the application and memo provided in the committee packet, the presentation made at the committee meeting, the comments of those in attendance, the requests of First United Methodist Church and the Board of Miami County Commissioners to make further adjustments to the proposed new permanent and temporary boundaries, and the comments of council members. We recommend that the legislation that will be presented at the January 17th meeting of council be postponed indefinitely, and that a new amended designated outdoor refreshment area application be submitted with legislation to follow February 6th that will exclude from the new proposed and expanded permanent boundary the area requested by the First Area United Methodist Church, which is the sidewalk on the south side of West Franklin Street between South Market Streets and South Cherry Streets, and exclude from the permanent boundary but permit in the temporary boundary the Miami County parking lot on the west side of Cherry Street and the east side of the safety building. This has been respectfully submitted by Mrs. Marshall, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Pierce, Mr. Rozelle, Mr. Schilling, Mr. Siebert, Mrs. Snee, Mr. Twist, and Mr. Whidden. Are there any comments or questions on this report? Seeing none, we have an oral report this evening from the Personnel Committee and Mr. Pierce.
Mayor Oda has requested consent of the appointment of Howard Wingert to the Enterprise Zone Tax Incentive Review Council to fulfill the unexpired term of Matthew Post through October 9, 2023. I move the council consents the appointment of Hobart Wingert to the Enterprise Zone Tax Incentive Review Council for a term through October 19, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions on the appointment?
I have a question.
Mrs. Marshall?
So what happens then, through October 19th? What happens to that position then after the 19th? Does he stay in that position, or what?
He would be asked if he wanted to stay on.
Okay, I have another question then. I'm sure he's fine, but I don't know this gentleman. I don't really know anything about him or his qualifications for that job. I mean, what were they?
He's a business owner. City resident.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions? Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Schilling,
Yes.
Mr. Rozelle,
Yes.
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Whidden,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mrs. Snee.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. Thank you, Mrs. Knight. We will open up for citizen comments for items on the agenda. We have one resolution and one ordinance for discussion. If you wish to address council on any of those items, you're invited to come to the podium, give your name and address. You have 2 minutes to address council. Mr. Kerber will be our timekeeper. There are no takers this evening. We'll move on to resolutions. We'll ask Mrs. Knight to read the only resolution of the evening, Resolution R4, 2023.
Resolution number R4, 2023, a resolution authorizing consent and cooperation with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the resurfacing of a portion of State Route 55 located within the corporation limit of the city of Troy, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. This is the first reading. This work will be done by ODOT at no cost to the city.
Second.
It's been moved to suspend the 3-reading rule by Mr. Whedon, seconded by Mr. Pierce. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Schilling,
Yes.
Mr. Rozell,
Yes.
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Whidden,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mrs. Snee,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes. Move to adopt. Second.
The three reading rule has been suspended. It's been moved to adopt the resolution by Mr. Whidden, seconded by Mr. Sievert. Are there any final comments or questions? Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rozell,
Yes.
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Whidden,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mrs. Snee,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. Mrs. Knight, will you please read the only ordinance of the evening, Ordinance 01, 2023.
Ordinance number 01, 2023, an ordinance amending the designated outdoor refreshment area known as the Downtown Troy Designated Outdoor Refreshment Area and regulations provided for by ordinance number 011, 2021. This includes the amendments that were discussed at committee meeting, first reading.
Mr. President, I would move that we postpone indefinitely 01-2023, amending the designated outdoor refreshment area in conjunction with the minutes of the committee as a whole.
Second.
It has been moved to postpone the ordinance indefinitely by Mr. Sievert, seconded by Mrs. Snee. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Whidden,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mrs. Snee,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Schilling,
Yes.
Mr. Rozell.
Yes.
Motion is adopted.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. Mrs. Knight, do we have any communications or announcements?
I expect very shortly to hear from the Ohio Ethics Commission. That will be time to start looking to filing your financial disclosure statement.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. Moving on to comments of officials, Mayor Oda.
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Director of Public Service and Safety, Mr. Tennington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing either.
Thank you. Director of Law, Mr. Kerber.
Sounds like the thing to do. I have nothing further.
I see Captain Mumford in the audience this evening, and I just want to say that last Monday, I had the opportunity to spend the day with the police department, and I was thoroughly impressed by the professionalism of our officers during some very tense, but also some very routine encounters that our officers have with our residents. It's amazing the work that our police officers go through. You go from the highest of the highs to the lowest of the lows at a drop of a hat. And please give my regards to our officers on the wonderful job that they do. Thank you, Captain. Do any council members have any comments this evening? Do any staff members have any comments this evening? We now open up for residents' comments. If you wish to address council on any topic, we've only been here for 17 minutes. Feel free to come to the podium, give your name and address, and take as much time as you wish to consume.
Yes, we're driving, we'll try not to extend it to half an hour, but... Please. Are you sure? I can extend it to an hour if you want to, Mr. Twist. I'm kidding. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone up here who attended yesterday's Martin Luther King celebration, whether it was on the march or at the church. I was genuinely impressed with how it went. You know, I don't think there is anybody in this room that could say a bad thing about it. And I want to piggyback on something that Mr. Schilling said in his invocation tonight. He said that the city motto was "Where civic pride is citywide," and that is true. But I seem to remember something else that used to be on our signboards at the entrances to our community. And I don't know if it's still there, and if it's not, it needs to be. It was two simple words. Two simple words that I think we can all attribute to our late Mayor Peter Jenkins. And it was this: be kind. Two simple words, but it says a lot. And as we're seeking to further Dr. King's concept of the beloved community, I think those words need to be put back on our, I don't know what you call those, entrance boards, what do we call them, entrance boards? I think those words need to be put back out there to remind us to be kind.
I think they're there, Brad.
Are they, I didn't know if they were still there or not, I don't look.
I think they are. The one by Subway, I think, is,
Yeah.
on Main Street.
But is the one up here at the corner have it?
I'll pay attention.
I don't know if that one ever had, I know the
Yes, it did, it did. The old board did before we changed the colors. I don't know, I don't pay attention to the bottom of it, I just remember it stood out. It was very, very prominent lettering. You couldn't miss it. If they are out there, good. If not, they need to be put back out there again, because I think we tend to forget that. Now, I have a second question, and this came to me through my sources again. What is the criteria for a downtown property owner to receive a loan for improvements on the property, Mr. Titterington?
What kind of loan are you talking about?
Well, I've received information that our favorite property owner, who I won't name, but we all know who it is, was recently given $8,000 by the city of Troy to put some windows in one of his properties. Can you confirm or deny that?
That would be, Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to
Please, Mr.
respond.
Titterington.
That, I believe, was you're speaking of the facade improvement program, not the building loan or revolving loan program.
Okay, well,
That's a program that is administered through Troy Main Street.
Okay, so it's not a city of Troy
We
program.
participated in the evaluation of those applications. I want to say there were 13 or 15 applications that were approved using the ARPA funds to improve various properties in the downtown.
Are there any requirements for financial statements on any of those applications, as far as you know?
I would have to check the website. All the details are on the development page of the city's website.
Okay. I said at the last meeting regarding this person, he's not hard up for money. So why he's getting money from this program is way beyond me and should be way beyond but as you said, it was ARPA money, so I can't gripe too much about that because it's money that was pretty much a grant from the government, I guess. I don't know much about the ARPA program. I don't pretend to know everything about it. But it just seems to me that we're giving this person a lot of money when we shouldn't be. And, that's neither here nor there, but I really can't say too much. I really can't say too much since obviously, as Mr. Titterington just said, rightly so, it is not a city program. So I thank you for your forthcomingness with that, Mr. Titterington. I do appreciate that. And, like I said, let's just be kind to one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrier. Anyone else wish to address council this evening? Seeing no one else, this meeting is adjourned.